community. We are here this evening with the Smith family. This is Giles Smith and his parents, Marcia and Harold. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. So I want to start out with just a little brief introduction of Giles. He's a U.S. national swim team member, and he is a sprinter who specializes in the freestyle and the butterfly. He participated in the 2016 U.S. Olympic trials. And before that, in 2015, he won a gold medal in the Pan American Games, and he set a new record in the 100 butterfly. Giles is an All-American, a 5-time All-American from Baltimore, Maryland, and we are so happy that you all took the time out of your holiday celebrations to spend a few moments answering questions from the Black Kids Swim community.
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
So we want to start out with the parents because they're the ones that make it all possible, that make it all happen. Can you tell us how you all found the sport of swimming and why you chose to get Giles into it?
Well, neither one of us swim, but found out very early on that he had a real love for water. When he had his first bath, he just smiled. I knew he had a passion for water at that time. And then later on, I guess we were about 2 or 3, we were introduced to Marvin Thorpe. And he is a community swim organization that taught kids how to swim, particularly African-American kids, how to swim at an early age. And then from there on, he said, well, he has a talent. Maybe you should look into getting him into on a swim team. And that's how it really started.
He was the person that led us to going to, we first went to Baltimore City Swim Club. And that was Giles' first team.
Marvin Thorpe is an amazing pillar in the Black swim community, and we're so glad that he has a team now, the 4MSC Swim Club.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you mentioned him. So tell us about Giles' first team.
Well, he was a member of the Baltimore City Swim Club. That was his first swim team that he was associated with. It was a team where he could go and his first introduction to swimming. It was a predominantly African-American club. And they swam, 3 times?
3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Just 3 times a week, an introductory into the sport. And that's where it all began, because we didn't know anything about swimming.
We were newbies.
We were real newbies. Like I said, neither one of us swim. So it was a good introduction to the sport.
And what to be expected of going to swim meets and, you know.
Heat laying on the hand.
Somebody told us EHL. I said, well, what is that?
This is a bad.
So we learned from the very beginning, the basic parts of the sport and how it works.
So with the writing on the hand, you're talking about his events, his heats, and what lane he's in.
Yeah. We had no clue. We saw everybody writing on their kid's arm with markers. Well, what are they doing?
Sometimes it's the basics, like what is the difference between a heat sheet and a psych sheet, and what are all the different elements of a swim meet that's it's just new to families if they're used to more traditional sports for the African American community, such as track or basketball or football.
Right.
So as swim parents, what did you do to really become a part of the team, of the swim team community?
Well, his next team, his third team, I became a meet manager. So before that, you would time, but by being a meet manager, I was the person that, I took money from teams. I entered all the information into the meet manager program, and I would assign jobs to people from the team to work for workers, because every team needs workers to make a meet successful. That's one of the ways most teams make their money, is by at least holding 1 or 2 meets a year. So that was my main part of being a part of our team.
And so, especially for the African American children on deck, how does it change a meet for them to see timers and officials that look like them?
Well, it's always good to see someone who looks like you. I mean, that's
because you and I both know that majority of meets you go to, unless you're going to a Black History meet, you're going to see not going to see a lot of people of color. You know, and so I guess it's I would assume it's great. Number one, for them to see other members from different races swimming, and in the crowd also. So I guess that's a plus.
And piggybacking off of that too, from a little bit like the athlete perspective, when I was an athlete, I was just a little bit more focused on, you know, the pool. But when you see, you know, people that look like you in the pool, you're like, oh, okay, it's a little bit more, you know, normal. You see a couple timers, and it overall, I would say that when it comes to really just thinking about, you know, fitting in and everything, I think that it really just helped me have a sense of comfort and balance. You know, seeing people that, you know, look like me, just like, you know, my community, my neighborhood.
Correct.
But your number one support comes from your family base.
Yeah.
It would not just be us at a meet. It would be us. It would be the grandmothers, the grandfathers, and also, you know, other friends from the family that would be there. So it wouldn't just be us that are his main support. It's a community thing.
It's a small village.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that really kind of helped me along with my development was just the fact that I felt like I had a strong sense of support, family support the whole time. Like I never once felt that, and even through the high highs and low lows, and there is all a million things in between there, is that I had family support the whole way. And whenever I really talked about my mom and my dad or my grandparents, you know, they kind of understood how committed I was, and, you know, that we're going to have to all have to take little steps to be a part of this journey.
So in talking about this journey and your transition from Mr. Thorpe's program to the Baltimore City Swim Club, how did you know when it was time to move Giles to another team, and what did that decision include to make sure that he'd be comfortable at the next team?
3 days a week wasn't enough as a swimmer. It was great in the beginning. It was a great introduction to swimming, but it just wasn't enough. He needed to have, you know, a 5-6 day a week swim program. And that's why we moved on.
It's too hard of a sport to, you know, really just be in the water a few times. I mean, they knew, and we all knew, that if I wanted to really chase some of the things I wanted to do, I had to be in the water every day.
But see, that was a program that was run by the city.
Yeah.
And although it had fantastic coaches, this was, you know, all Baltimore City could give to them as a team. So.
Yeah. But it was a great setup, had great coaches. So,
we loved it.
Yeah,
I mean, we hate leaving.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We loved all the people that we met. In fact, we had family friends. We've gone back to see them, and
I remember I did a swim clinic for a guy who used to do private lessons and coach me as a kid, as a 10-year-old, and you know, 15 years later, I'm doing clinics and lessons for them in Houston. So, you know, you never know where the journey is going to take you. And, you know, he was a guy that was a coach at Baltimore City Swim Club.
I think it's hard for a child to leave their friends and the coaches that they're used to. It's also hard for the team to lose a swimmer, especially when it's a very talented swimmer.
Well, I'll tell you too, at that time as well, I mean, I was nowhere near. Like, there was no telling.
Okay.
At this point, there was no way you could tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't win my very first race until I was 8 years old. And, you know, I started to get a little better around 10. But, I mean, there were some signs, but I would say you couldn't even really tell that maybe the elite path was probably going to start to play around 12, 11.
Okay.
I left Baltimore City we left after 9.
Right.
Yeah, I started Katie at 10. It was a Y team in Katie's club.
So you switched from swimming 3 days a week to swimming 6 days a week. Was there any difference in the length of practice or the yardage that you swam at practice? Can you speak about that? Because parents are wondering how they can numerically evaluate a team.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the exact numbers in my head, but I can definitely give you everything went up. You know, the amount of time, the amount of yardage, the amount of training intensity, more pulling, more kicking. I mean, at that level, you know, I started to maybe have some days where I took around 3,000 a workout, 3,500 if that gives some athletes some context.
That helps.
And I started to do some dry land.
Hadn't done dry land
I hadn't
before.
done anything like that stuff. You know, the outside of the water stuff. And then obviously as you get further, then the yardage shoots on up.
So you said, and this 3,000, 3,500, I know these are estimates, but is that average for swimmers in that 10, 11, 12, 13?
Yeah, I'd say that's about it. Some people, I've seen kids do as much as 7,000 at 11 or 12. I was not raised that way. I had pretty good coaches that always had a pretty good mind on like the development of swimmers. And so they always, you know, 3,000, 3,500 is an hour and a half in the water, you know, hour 45 minutes in the water for a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. Still a lot of time. You're doing that 6 times a week.
But that's very helpful. If you say that there are some children who are swimming 7,000 in a practice at that young age, that, I mean, that is going to translate into performance during meet. So when parents wonder why maybe their child isn't progressing, that could be one of the things.
And it's all development rates too. You know, some kids, like there were kids that we'd swim against when I was, 10 that had facial hair and we're 6 feet tall. And like, some of them are just a little bit more developed than others. So that's all part of it too. I've seen guys that have been NAG record holders at 10, and I've seen guys that have been walk-ons at colleges that have become Olympic champions. There's a million ways to swim really fast.
Okay.
And one thing I like to add for the parents to realize that let your child swim every type of race.
Yes.
Whether it's distance, short, 50 free. They might like the 50 free, but at that age, you don't know what you're really going to specialize in. So be open to them swimming all types of races, even at 1650 that all the kids dread.
Yeah. I did it.
Once a year at least.
It definitely helped my fitness, and I think it mentally helped me, hey, if I can swim the 1,000, well, what's 100,
Please say that again, Giles, because we have a lot of swimmers who don't want to swim anything longer than 100. What helped you get your 100 times faster?
Hundreds and 200s, 500s, just swim everything. I wasn't necessarily as skilled in those races. I wasn't, but I did them. And I got better at them some, especially maybe around the end of high school. I could swim a good 500 free, which was kind of, and it was fun to mix it up. Because once you get, a little older, probably the last 4 years of my career, all I did was swim 50 fly and 100 fly for like 4 straight years.
Okay, so let me, since Mom made that very good statement, I want to follow up with a question for you. For our swim parents, how did you manage Giles's nutrition and his rest?
Rest was
no problem.
Yeah, he would go as much as he could. That wasn't an issue.
When he was a little kid, he said a nap was a bad word. After he became a swimmer, it was like, can I take a nap?
As far as nutrition, early on, it was a little bad, but it got better. He liked to eat a lot of junk food like the average kid does. Yeah. But we would throw in vegetables and fruits and things like that. But he did eat junk food in the very beginning.
We were warned about sending chicken boxes with him, getting on trips.
No, I'm dead. So we would go up to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is a true story. I had a hot chicken box. Dunk up the van.
Oh no!
Ate up there and swam, and I had an awesome meet. The one thing I recommend too for kids, if you eat unhealthy, don't just wait till the day before or the week before meet and start eating healthy, because then it's just kind of stay consistent. Don't make changes, last minute before meet. Stay in your routine, whatever that is. I savor foods at that time that were comfortable with me. But as I got older, if you're swimming at the world-class level and you're putting McDonald's in your body every day.
Same thing with equipment too. We found out that sometimes if he got new goggles or whatever, wear them a couple days ahead of time just to break them in.
Don't ever try anything new on race day.
No. Try it on beforehand, wear it, make sure everything is coming up on you and tightening up.
New suit, put it on at least before. Like everything has to be, it's just like practice, You got to make sure everything is the right way.
Okay. So in that same vein, Mom and Dad, how did you balance school in this equation as well? Because academics, of course, always come first, but swimming is a very time-demanding sport. And as children get older, sometimes they're doing 2-a-days. So how did you manage that?
Well, swimming makes you
manage your time.
Manage your time. If you don't, you won't be swimming very long. That was one thing I was a stickler about, was his grades. I mean, at one point we had him going to a tutor to prepare him, and then he got the good foundations in the education, and then he was pretty much.
I had a rough spot maybe in 7th or 8th grade, but other than that, I mean, it was kind of smooth sailing with the grades,
You definitely learn time management when you swim, because a lot of people don't realize how hard this sport is. I mean,
and sometimes we were running when he was younger.
Yeah, we run from meet to meet,
not just
meet to school.
Oh my God! But I would pick him up, or somebody would pick him. A grandmother would pick him up, get him to me. I might take him to a tutor, sit there with the tutor, get him from the tutor. We're in the van going to swim practice. He's changing his clothes in the van and running straight to practice. Coach got on him one day about, he was a little bit late to practice, and Giles was very young at the time.
I was 8.
He was 8.
Clearly dry.
And I didn't find out we were about 2 blocks away from the pool when he told me how the coach had gotten on him. So I said, okay, let's go back and have a talk. Sometimes coaches don't realize that children can only do what their parents can do. And didn't realize how hard we were trying to make everything. So I had to go back and explain to him just the whole situation. And,
in nice words.
Yeah, and after my explanation, everything, I think he really understood, and he never said a word to Giles after that.
And it was kind of difficult in a sense. I was gone Monday through Thursday. I used to travel. I started traveling when he was 5 years old, Monday through Thursday.
I was mother, father, sister, brother.
And then when I came home Thursday night, I had him Thursday through Sunday.
So I'm gonna follow up on Dad's answer, on Harold's answer there. The sport of swimming is not diverse. This is not news to anyone. Only about 1.3% of USA swimmers are African American. And sometimes that can result in a less than welcoming atmosphere, especially at the very competitive level for our children. Can you tell us about any instances when you had to protect Giles or to prepare him for uncomfortable situations, in the spirit of giving advice to some of our parents who are in those situations right now?
I guess the best thing I would say is to try to hold your tempers, talk to people to explain whatever the situation is. And a lot of times people just don't know, or just haven't had a lot of dealings. And I think the best thing that we had was Giles's whole manner. If Giles opened his mouth and started talking to someone, it seemed everything would just smooth out. In fact, I would always say, I wish I was more so like my son, where I'm the person that gets a little heated. He is the master at staying cool, calm, and copacetic.
Okay. Okay.
We've had some situations, and you're going to have them throughout life, dealing with different coaches, different people in the stand. But you also know that you're there with your child, and you don't want your child you want to protect your child, and you want to make sure that your child is still looked upon everywhere, from everyone in the right light. And I think we've done a pretty good job, and we haven't had any situation that we couldn't successfully get out of.
Okay. We've definitely done.
So he's an extrovert. So once he starts talking to people, he's very friendly, and they get to know him.
And a lot of the people that he swam with, I mean, he had one guy who's now, oh my goodness, he has his own company in Catonsville, and as a little boy, Giles was taking him to swim meets and getting him up on the blocks. And he was a little Caucasian boy. Everybody said, "Oh, he's so nice. He's taking the time to work with him." But that was Giles. No matter what color you were, who it was, he would help you if you needed help. So
that's how you should be. You know, the one thing too that my parents did that, you know, I think made it really comfortable for me is that, you know, it was just a fun atmosphere, and they put me in a position to where, you know, a lot of the things I never really had to, you know, deal with a sticky or hairy real situation. It was just, you know, the hairy situation was figuring out how to swim the 200 fly or figuring out how to swim that 200 IM with a legal touch or something like that. Those are always, I mean, it was just, my parents did such a good job of just making us all I had to do was just focus on swimming. And I think that made it really easy for me, you know, not easy, it was never easy, but, you know, it made it easier for me because at least my issues were always like, I didn't hit my start, or, you know, missed the turn. It was just swimming.
It was pool issues.
It's pool issues always. Those are the things that would make me mad.
We dealt with the life issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal.
We did a great job, you know, as parents, especially looking back. You know, I'm 26 years old now, and I think that they did, you know, help us support and just be there, and just, you know, I feel like a lot of young men and women might not even have, you know, parents as great as them. You know, I'm really blessed to have them.
Yes, you are.
And I think we taught them independence. That's a big thing, I think, for swim parents.
Yeah.
When my son was 12 years old, he washed his own clothes.
11.
Okay, give me 11. When he was in the 10th or 11th grade, I opened a checking account so he could learn how to manage money. Right. So when he went to college, he knew how to control money and how to use a debit card and how to write a check.
And when he went to college, he had to teach other kids how to wash.
Actually,
yeah,
he made money.
Made some money washing.
Made money teaching kids how to wash.
And there's always some things, you know, and I was not, you know, the perfect child by any means. I'm messy, and, you know, that's my one thing is I'm a little messy sometimes. But, you know, independence and hard work, I mean, they set it up for me to where, you know, you just go out there and you do it. And you have fun doing it, and you put a smile on your face and have fun. That's how I was trying to think of everything.
Okay. Well, I have a question from one of our swim moms on Twitter. I mean, we get this question a lot. When your child doesn't perform the way that they want to in the water, what, if anything, is the right thing to say or do?
I would say flush it and move on. It's another day. It's another race.
And then if they had set up goals ahead of time, not just for best time, but sometimes you need little stepping stone goals. You're not going to make a best time, but did you breathe off your last turn? Did you finish with a two-hand touch? You know, little things that always build up to that perfect race. And sooner or later, they're going to get that perfect race. So you can talk about all those little things that they did to prepare for it, and have them to make that goal. Most coaches do, but a lot of parents don't even talk about it. But we always used to talk about, you know, the goals that were set and what you've accomplished and what you have to accomplish. So that's something else parents can talk about too.
And I think, you know, it depends on the kid. You know, certain kids, it depends on the kid's personality. But I felt comfortable, you know, talking with my parents for the most part about my swim goals. You know, I would tell them, you know, hey, I want to do this, or you know, we had certain times written down, or we circled, you know, if there was a record that we wanted to break. Or I think that I was pretty comfortable sharing my goals with my parents, and I think that kind of helped me. And whenever sometimes I might have maybe inched a little off track, you know, they're like, hey, you know, how you gonna break these records?
And then what was it? The IM?
Yeah.
All right. What was that? 100 IM? 200 IM?
The one I couldn't get legal.
This was something that went on. He would every year we go and he'd swim this 200 IM.
That back to breast turn, I never figured it out.
And always get a DQ.
Always.
And it was always the Mother's Day meet.
Yep.
So you gonna get it this time?
Finally, I said one day, well, getting a little older now. Maybe for Mother's Day, can I? And he did it.
Oh, that's sweet.
And the last thing, too, really, for parents dealing with kids who go through ups and downs, I'll tell it this way. Swimming is a sport where you cannot go a best time every time. You're going to have times where you're going to be off. That's okay. But it's just like my dad says, it's about doing the little things, right? You know, setting your breakouts right. You know, dive in, doing your kickouts right. If you do that little stuff, at the end of the season, with your hard work, you train everything, you know, it's just like going to the bank and making a withdrawal. That's all it is. You know, you can make your deposits in the season.
But don't beat them up.
Yeah.
We've seen so many parents that would beat their kids up, and their kids were beating up on themselves. You know, and then you got mom or dad beating up on them on top of that. So, try to lift your kids up. Don't beat them up.
Especially with swim kids, for the most part, are very highly motivated, very goal-oriented, so they're going to be pretty hard on themselves already when they don't achieve what they want. So I always recommend, you know, just talk with them. Sometimes I like, you know, well, what happened? And then, you know, we talk it out, and that really helps. I think sometimes for the bad ones. And sometimes we'd ask what happened on the good ones, and we talk it out. And, you know, it's fun.
And then we'd be done with it.
Yeah, we'd be done with it.
Next day.
Next meet is always something else.
Very good. I've heard of sports psychologists and Olympians using that flush thing. And sometimes you'll see Olympians doing that with their fingers.
We had a good one, my club coach and I, Scott Ward, and he had the analogy of the flush a toilet. And I remember I had one sectionals I went to, and I was a little younger, and the sectionals a pretty high level meet. My first one was just a complete dud. I had like 8 seconds and 200 fly, and I was like 12. And he just did the sign of down the toilet. And, you know, later down the meet, I started to swim better. And that's just how it has to go. Sometimes you have meets where the first swim, the second swim, you know, you swim 6 times, sometimes one of them might be a dud. But, you know, you just keep fighting, keep flushing, because if you don't flush it, it's going to stay with you, and then it's just going to affect everything.
Thank you for that. It's really helpful. You talked about the perfect race. And Giles, I'd like for you to give our young swimmers some advice on visualizing that perfect race.
Yeah, well, one thing that I always try to do is you close your eyes, and doing it with you right now for the kids, but breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just do that a couple times, just real slow and just relaxing, and just trying to visualize the pool that you're swimming in. Imagine the crowd. I mean, these are things that coaches had taught me at a young age. So by the time, you know, I was 15 to 16, I could close my eyes, especially if there's a pool I'd been at. I can close my eyes, visualize my race, visualize the scoreboard, know what the pool would taste like, and like, you know, I mean, to every detail. And that makes it a lot easier to perform at a high level. You know, it's just like being prepared. You know, we'd swim at Maryland State Championships was always at Annapolis, at the Naval Academy. And so I knew that pool like the back of my hand. And I knew what the scoreboard was going to say. I knew what the pace clock was going to do. I knew how the block was going to shake when my left foot went on. It's crazy that fast. But it's just that level of visualizing that really helps the perfect race, because the one thing about the perfect race, it almost feels sometimes effortless, and sometimes you might not even remember it. as kind of out there as that sounds, I remember one of my experiences in college when I won my first national title in a relay. And he was like, so what was it like? I don't remember anything. And so that happens. So it's just like, you know, if you train hard and you're prepared and you do the visualization, you're ready, you're confident, this racing is going to take care of itself as long as your mind, like, you know, you can stay in it mentally. Because that's one thing, you know, a lot of kids, we don't really talk about is the mental aspect of swimming, which is so huge.
Okay. I'm going to take a step back again and just to talk about why Black Kids Swim exists and why you, Giles, and your family is so important to what we do. We're all familiar with the statistics about the percentage of African Americans who lack basic swimming skills and the drowning statistics. But another one, there was a recent USA Swimming study that said that around 70% of Black children said that if they saw kids who looked like them excelling in the sport, that they would be more likely to join it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the role models that you had in the sport and how you see the sport changing in the last 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, I can definitely go on a little bit of that topic. So for me, at least when I was really a lot younger, at that point, there had never been an African-American male to make the United States Olympic team. There's
Correct.
no landscape than it is now. So for me, my
Urban,
model growing up, honestly, was my dad. You know, I got to go and like hang out with my dad all the time. It was so cool. Like, here you go, just have fun. That's what, you know, he was my hero. And so like everything, I had athletes in other sports that I really liked, but I mean, I just loved being around my dad. And so that made it so fun. But going, you know, really to your question, Cullen Jones is always our influence. Michael Normant, he went to a Black History meet when I was really young. You might not know who Michael Normant is. Michael Normant was one of the first Black professional swimmers ever. He swam at University of Georgia, was a multiple-time NCAA champion breaststroke, U.S. national team. This is in the early 90s, late 90s. And I got to meet Michael Normant. And he even signed something for me. You know, he didn't know who I was at the time. But, you know, even now, like, I see him on a pool deck. And he doesn't know that, you know, one of those little kids. I mean, and we talk and we're tight. And guys like Atiba Wade, Maritza McClendon, her name was Maritza Mariah at the time. Oh, Mariah, sorry. And people like, I mean, we went to the 2004 Olympic trials and we got to see Maritza make the Olympic team. And she was the first Black female ever to do it. And she's been I tried to, you know, keep contact with and have a great relationship with. And she's been a mentor for me. I know she's also been a mentor for Swim Manual as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a small community, but it's a tight community. Cullen Jones is someone, I mean, he just got married. I sent him, you know, a card for his.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's someone that I've raced and have a lot of respect for. But in the African-American community, I would say like guys like Cullen, Michael Norman, the guys named Atiba Wade, Maritza were some of my heroes looking up. Sabir too. Sabir was big. Sabir
Muhammad, right.
Sabir Muhammad was probably the first, I mean, mega star in the NCAA sports that was Black. And so he was going like 19-second 50 flies back when they didn't even have cameras.
Oh.
That's insane. And he just missed making the Olympic team in 2000. So, but he had a couple tries, but he didn't make it. But he was always in those finals. And when you're a little kid, and I mean, when I was 8, 10, 12, I was like, oh, wow, that's, you know, someone that looks like me. And that's really special to see because at the time I wasn't there, but eventually I was there. And those seeing things like that, I think, kind of helped me.
And that's why also going to Black History Beat and the Heritage Meet down south, always good things to do because they give our swimmers a chance to see our swimmers.
And interact. You know, I met kids from Atlanta, Georgia that were awesome, you know, city of Atlanta, and from all over. And I would have never had experiences like that. if it weren't for the Black History Meet and, you know, the Black Heritage Meet in North Carolina. I mean, there are all types of, and the thing is that at those levels, there are freakishly talented kids.
Mm-hmm.
Usually some of those kids will be swimming in NCAA finals or, you know, swimming college. It's cool to see, especially if you you follow it, you know, from a kid 10 to 18 or something like that. It's really special.
Can you talk a bit about the importance of diversity meets? You mentioned the Aqua Blazers meet, the National Black Heritage Championship meet that takes place every Memorial Day weekend in North Carolina. And then there's the Black History Meet that DC Parks and Rec does as well. Mm-hmm. What is it like as a young swimmer to get to go to one of those meets?
Rewarding. It would be the word I would use. Rewarding, just because you get to see people that look like you. I mean, you can see a lot of people that look like you on deck, and it's a different swim meet culture. It's a whole different culture. I mean, I never thought I'd get to go to a swim meet where, especially at that time, you know, we talked. I wasn't the best nutrition eater, and they'd have, you know, fried lake trout. I'm like, fried lake trout, and like, you know, normal swimming, fried lake trout, but. It was just like things that were in my community, that were in my culture, especially as I progressed, you know, it started to change, but I was still swimming in some of those meets. So like the meets were mostly white that I was swimming in Maryland. Then I'd go see this and see, you know, oh wow, like, you know, the kids were listening to the same music I was listening to. And the food was the same. And the dancing everything was like the things that were in my home community were similar to. Whereas, you know, in certain things, I had to, you know, learn a lot in other, you know, from other races, other ethnicities, other cultures, which is still great too, because I think that the beauty of swimming is that it should be multiple cultures, multiple races, multiple ethnicities, gender, sexual orientation. It should be an all-inclusive sport. That's my one thing. Diversity and inclusion in swimming. If you swim fast, that should be all that matters.
Watercolor.
Yeah, we care. It doesn't matter what you look like. It matters, you know, who finishes first, second, third. Those are the things that, you know, I think are really important.
So another question for your parents. Swimming is a very demanding sport, and it doesn't necessarily have that payoff or that fantasy payoff at the end that the NFL or the NBA might provide. But it does provide many other life skills. Can you talk a bit about what you wanted for your son to get out of the sport of swimming?
Go ahead and tell me your
ship story.
Okay.
Oh, we get a story. Okay.
I always wanted Giles to be able to go to college, to gain a scholarship, to come out of college educated without having any loans, any debt whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say,
me too.
He got the shit.
Yay!
I used to always talk about, I see the ship coming in. It's over there. We're getting closer and closer to it. Might just possibly get on. And he did. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of people have dreams and misconceptions. I did too.
We all did.
About swimming scholarships. And it's very competitive, and it's a very small pot. It's a very small pie. And that's exactly what it is. It's a pie that's cut into sections and sections and sections.
There are not just 30 swim scholarships for the 30 kids that are on the team. That's not how college.
And it's not like basketball and football where every kid gets a full scholarship. It's a full ride.
Yeah, football has 86 scholarships.
Yeah.
Swimming has
9.9 on the men's side, 14 for women for a full team.
So,
and that's with diver included.
So female swimmers,
a little bit more opportunities.
A little bit more opportunities for you than for the male swimmers. Male swimmers, you got to swim fast.
Yeah, you got the only way to get a lot of scholarship as a male is pretty much to be a sprinter and to be very versatile and to be just very good at what you do. or you know, have something that you can show to the coaches that they can project growth.
And then don't
Can you
just
talk a little more about that versatility in terms of how many events a college would want a swimmer to be able to do before they consider them for a scholarship?
swim at NCAA.
Okay, so
Not just your specialties either.
yeah, so I was at Arizona. I was a butterfly. Butterfly is my main specialty, but I mean at NCAA's, I would swim 15 races in 3 days. I mean, it's just nonstop. I'd swim relays in the morning, relays at night, freestyle here, freestyle there. I mean, they want versatility. You don't have to be able to swim like, you know, if you're a 50 guy in college, you don't have to be able to swim 1650. You're not going to go that versatile. But, you know, if you swim a 50, you'll swim a 200. Or you'll swim 100. Or you'll swim 2 strokes. Or you'll swim some relays. Because, I mean, especially if they're compensating you pretty well for scholarship, they plan on using you a lot. So you have to be kind of very flexible, kind of open-minded. I mean, there were times where I didn't want to swim certain races, but I knew that's what my team needed, and so I went in there and did my best and tried to do my all every race I swam.
Excellent.
But with versatility in the sport, my best recommendation for kids, minority kids, their parents, swim everything. Just swim everything, and you know, try and have a goal in 3 or 4 or 5 different events, because sometimes you might go to the meet and something might happen in your best race. But if you have another one, you know, that you really are into, it's a little easier. When you get to the super high levels, it's a lot more specialization. You have guys that just swim 50 back or 50 breast, 50 fly, guys that just swim one race. But at the age group level, even through high school and through college, I mean, I think you swim a lot more different things.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time, but I want to allow each one of you to give a piece of advice to the Black swim community. We'll go ahead and start with Mom.
My biggest thing is prepare your child to be independent. Eventually, they're going to leave.
So, hopefully.
Leave and do not come back except for
visiting. Yeah, I'm always welcome to visit.
He's always welcome as a visitor. No, but just prepare your kid to be you know, a great human being, an adult.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Give your child some opportunities to just be a child. A lot of times, and I'm thinking back to something my mother said the other day. She said that my father, God rest his soul, would always talk about how the boy is always in the pool. He's always in the pool. But we did have opportunities to do little things, so that we still had a childhood. You know, he had memories of things that we did that weren't just all swimming. You know, not trying to take away from the swimming. A lot of it was, but you know what? Sometimes in between the swimming, or when we would be doing the swimming, we would take those moments to have family time.
Yeah. And those are the things, you know, I always remember is, you know, we might have spent a lot of time in obscure Buffalo, New York, or Irvine, California, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Indiana, you know, all these cities everywhere. But we just have fun. And, you know, after the meet, we always find something to do as a family. And, you know, we kind of just let the meet kind of just sink in, and there's always another meet. My one tip for kids would be don't let anyone tell you that you can't drink. Because when I was a kid, I had a lot of people tell me that, you know, and not just that, in one instance. I mean, I had people telling me, I mean, I had some pretty out there goals. When I was 11 years old, I wrote on a goal sheet that I wanted to make the Olympic team. And, you know, normal kids, I feel like a lot of kids, they might dream that, but they don't write that down, and they don't put that in their locker. They don't put that on their refrigerator. I mean, go out there and dream big. If you fail, so what? You know, my dream goal was to be an Olympian. And I didn't make my goal. But you know what? I had a ton of goals at a time where they seemed crazy. Right. And they were goals that were out there. Goals of winning national titles, being on one of the best swim teams in the country.
Seeing the world.
I got to
traveled all over the
been
world.
to Singapore, you know, Dubai, Russia. Only place I haven't really visited is a bunch of Europe. But I mean, it was a journey. I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. I'm blessed to have these two people right here by my side because they made it easy when, you know, they didn't have to try as hard, you know. Really blessed to have them. And so, you know, for kids, hug your mom, hug your dad, tell them thank you because I know how much swimsuits cost.
Well, thank you. Thank you to each and every one of them.
Those big suits, the full-length suits.
Yeah, $600.
A lot of them.
That's a I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you, the Smith family, for taking time out of your time with your son during the holidays to share some of your wisdom and your experiences with the Black Kids Swim community. We so appreciate you being able to have Giles as a role model for our kids, and of course, Mr. and Mrs. Smith as a role model for our parents. So thank you, and keep doing what you're doing
too, because I think you're doing a lot for the swimming community.
We appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.